leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond. Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, seeking a remedy for the DRC conflict. What are the options that can lead to a lasting peace? Efforts to avert a full-scale war in the DRC continue on the continent, despite accusations made by UN-linked report that the DRC neighbors, Rwanda and Uganda, are supporting the M23 rebels. Uganda and Rwanda continue to deny the allegations, with Rwandan High Commissioner to Uganda, Major General Frank Mugambaje, saying Rwanda and Uganda prefer a peaceful neighbor to exploit trade and other advantages of peace. Uganda had been chosen to act as a mediator at a Great Lakes meeting held in Kampala in August, but now the DRC government is rejecting this position, saying Uganda, having been implicated, cannot be a neutral party. Today, South African President Jacob Zuma and DRC President Joseph Kabila issued a joint statement after a meeting in Pretoria, condemning the forces that are destabilizing the DRC and calling for a ceasefire. Regional experts warn that the entire Great Lakes region faces severe consequences if the DRC conflict, currently limited to the North Kivu province, is allowed to escalate. Many have argued that the DRC needs a political solution to ensure that the government at the helm in Kinshasa has full control over the vast country and can also take charge of the vast natural resources, especially minerals, that could be precipitating the conflict. The International Conference on the Great Lakes region is looking at several options, but already the idea of deploying a neutral force to confront the M23 rebels and enforce peace has gained most appeal and currency. So as we continue to seek a solution to this conflict, we explore ideas that can lead to a lasting peace to avoid destabilizing the entire Great Lakes region. Our guests tonight, Mr. Sam Angoliga, Deputy Secretary of Defense in charge of security at the FDC party. You're most welcome, Mr. Angoliga.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners and viewers.
Viewers, because we're also on the internet, you can get a video of Spectrum of YouTube. We also expect to be joined by Mr. Robert Mujimba from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, working with the International Conference on the Great Lakes region and the mediation team to the DRC conflict. We expect him to join us shortly. Also to come, we expect Dr. David Mushabe from the Mushabe, Munungu and Company Advocates. Mr. Angoliga, what in your reading is the root cause of the conflict in the DRC?
Yeah, thank you once again. Circumstances surrounding conflict in DRC should not be news to Ugandans or member states of Great Lakes region. This conflict is a continuation of the revolution which took place in DRC in 1997, then again 2003, and then last year with the Laurent Nkunda, and then before Ntaganda you heard of another group which was there which came in after Nkunda. But there is an open secret which those of us who have interest in the state of affairs of Uganda and what is happening in the Great Lakes region, we know. One is that it is in the interest of Uganda, Rwanda, and those whom they have a common ethnic cultural bond, who want to establish control over the governments in Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi and DRC. That is the bigger picture which we who are interested in our affairs, because we feel implicated, we watch what is happening. So this conflict emanates from this brief background.
So how do we see the way forward? I mean, you've given us the history, and I'd like us to explore that in more detail later. But how can it be resolved, going forward?
One, for resolution of the conflict in DRC, I don't think Uganda should play the mediation role.
What do you mean by that? We are their neighbors and we've got some experience in doing some of these things.
Because you cannot keep your neighbor's enemy in your country and then at the same time you want to mediate with your neighbor.
Which enemies of theirs are we keeping here?
The M23.
What do you mean?
They live in Uganda under Rwanda.
Why have you seen them?
The
government says we're not supporting their why do you get this?
As I told you that we are an interested party. This is our country. We're interested in governing it. So whatever happens, if something belongs to you, you look at it critically. So we're not just speculating. We are saying, first of all, DRC should not be taken for granted that it cannot control its state of affairs. DRC is very alert. This is why it is rejecting Uganda and Rwanda.
Well, but you claim, we know that the UN claimed that Uganda and Rwanda are supporting the M23 rebels, but you seem to have a lot more information that you have in the public domain. What do you mean? Where have you seen these M23 rebels in Kampala and other places?
You know one thing, when any government, it is only a government which has the legitimate role to stop someone on the street and question him, because they enforce the law. But as an interested party, what you see, you can only lament or complain about. So what we are saying, these are facts. The government can come with its facts and put on the table, and interested parties in Uganda also can come out with the facts. We want a Uganda which is very peaceful with its neighbors. So we are saying that Uganda is not the right choice, neither Rwanda.
Well, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, seeking a remedy to the DRC, for the DRC conflict. What are the options that can lead to a lasting peace? Well, we expected to be joined by the spokesperson for the M23 political wing. He was meant to be on this show on Spectrum tonight, but we have a report that he has been taken ill to hospital. We also expected to be joined by the spokesman for the Uganda People's Defense Forces, as the National Army and the Ministry of Defense, Mr. Felix Fulaije, but it appears he was not able to make it. He cancelled this appointment a little bit late, very late this evening, but he will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Let's go back, Mr. Angoliga. Let's go back a little bit to the root of the DRC conflict. You mentioned 1997. Remind us about what happened in 1997, 2003, and how it relates to the current trend of events.
Well, in 1997, a war was kicked against then Zaire in two fronts. One from Uganda, from the borders of Mpondwe, that is Kasese side, and the other in Rwanda, from Gisenyi, at the border of Rwanda and Goma. The Rwandese claimed they were pursuing the Interahamwe, who had fled the war, the Habyarimana war, into DRC, into Zaire by then, and Uganda claimed they are pursuing the
ADF, was that
the ADF,
yes,
rebels who are operating between Beni and
Jamil Mukulu's
group, Jamil Mukulu group, and so on. So these were the two fronts pursued that war, and then the long-time rebels of Zaire, led by Laurent Kabila Sr., joined that. They took that as an opportunity. By the time they reached Kisangani, Kisangani is midway between Kinshasa and the borders of Uganda and Rwanda. So they formed themselves and they all progressed up to Kinshasa. These two forces of two countries went up to Kinshasa and installed a government there. Unfortunately, they failed to control the government. When the Congolese went there and said, look here, we are Congolese, you have helped us, thank you, go back.
Go back home.
This did not go well. The quarrels generated into the eventual murder of Laurent Kabila.
Laurent Kabila, the old man.
The senior.
Yes.
And you remember, both Uganda and Rwanda were accused. And when Uganda and Rwanda went back, because they were not coordinating, each one wanted to be the supremo, they had to fight among themselves in Kisangani.
Yes.
Both sides lost soldiers. So that's the background. But I want to tell you, apart from that background, as I earlier said, President Museveni, President Paulo Kagame, and the General
Nkunda?
No. General James Kabarebe.
The Minister of Defense in Rwanda?
Yeah, but the Afro-American Network on UN group of experts.
Well, the claim is leading that rebellion.
Yeah, well,
totally denied that.
That's the confirmation. Whether someone is hiding in him, but the face now shown is of James Kabarebe.
What do you mean? The man is in Kigali. You
can't in Kigali, is the Minister of Defense, but the consensus created around that conflict, they claim so. Unless if he'll come cleaner and cleans himself. But at the moment, he's on table.
The government denies that.
Yeah, the government denies it. You see, the biggest problem these two countries are having, my country, Uganda, and Rwanda, they want things to happen. They dictate to the Great Lakes region, to African Union, to the UN. They want things to happen the way they want. They dictate terms. This is why when there was a need for a neutral force to be established in Eastern DRC, they came out with a formula. Whereas the offended party, the DRC government, said, no, you are the aggressors. How do you again come out with a formula of a neutral force? We don't want you near it. We don't want you even to know its operations. I think DRC, as a sovereign state, has a right. If you doubt your neighbor, say, look here, you're not doing the right thing. You cannot do this for me because I believe you're behind it. If you are interested in peace, you are supposed to step aside.
Well, but President Kabila of the DRC was here several times discussing this, and they agreed on a neutral force.
Yeah, but now when he agreed, why is it now he is not agreeing?
Tell us, what do you think?
I mean, first of all, he came to Uganda to register his consciousness. Look here, I'm your neighbor, and I intend to remain your neighbor, a good neighbor. Though you undermine me, I'll come to your home. It happens. You can have a quarrel with your neighbor. You doubt your neighbor, say that if I go there, he might poison me. He might give me water which is poisoned. But for you, when you invite him, he comes. He says, whether it is poison, what, let me come. But what I'm not going to accept is for you to come and help me sort out the mess within my country, because you are part of that mess.
Well, so who's going to help if you don't trust the neighbors?
Well, the help is in abundance, minus the neighbors.
A solution made in New York.
It is in our interest as Ugandans that our government should keep off from DRC. Because what is happening there, let me give you the scenario today.
Yes.
Uganda and Rwanda are the biggest exporters of diamond, gold, and coltan to Dubai, Belgium.
Rwanda has deposits of gold.
Well,
they even have gold.
You know now with the technology, it is very easy to identify gold from Congo, that from Rwanda. You can draw those differences. Yes. Diamond.
Yes.
Where is Uganda harvesting diamond from?
Well, you never know. We have a lot of creative people.
Or maybe they manufacture them, that might be right. But if they are getting them from the ground, let them put them on the table. Let them go to where they sell. And this gold, we know, these minerals pass through the hands of some generals and some powerful government officials.
You think Uganda is exporting diamonds from another country?
Yeah, they're exporting. Bank of Uganda issues those licenses, or they pass in Uganda on transit. Those are known facts.
Give us a solid answer to this resolution. How do we resolve it if you're excluding Rwanda and the DRC? Who gets
resolution?
Give us a number.
I've already given a suggestion. The suggestion is Uganda and Rwanda should pull out from the process, allow other member states of Great Lakes region to come up with a formula, and that formula should be worked with them. Because what Uganda is saying and Rwanda is that the DRC government should discuss with the M23 rebels. The question is, it isn't the, what was the Laurent Nkunda's group? What was the name? Where is it? Then this other general who came in, the one who was common on TV, I've missed his name, before Ntaganda came in. What is his rebel force? Why special about M23?
Well, they're creating a lot of trouble.
Why? Laurent Nkunda created more trouble. Even his force was formidable. You know, he even said God brought him the DRC tanks, which the army abandoned to him. He was a man whom also God liked. What happened? So what we are saying here, we want this country of ours to be a very clean country. We don't want it to soil its fingers in other people's, in neighbors' affairs. It helps us, it helps those who are in control. We are aware of there are people who talk about some empire. We are aware, as I told you earlier, it is in the interest of the two leaders. They want to establish a government in DRC which agree with them, which they have a common bond. They also want to amass wealth. This is why there's a lot of looting.
You're saying there's looting? There's no evidence to prove that.
I've talked about the gold export and the coltan and the...
It's not been proved.
It has been proved. After 2003, you remember the UN investigation report. Uganda, it was established, Uganda plundered wealth worth 10 billion.
The Assets pay 10 billion.
Yeah, 10 billion.
We don't have that money.
And we're supposed to pay. I don't know, maybe now with the event that we have oil, so the payment is going to be easy.
Let's not talk about our oil, man. Let it stay there. Well, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight, seeking a remedy for the DRC conflict. What are the options that can lead to a lasting peace? Our guests, Mr. Salim Angoliga, Deputy Secretary of Defense in charge of security in the Forum for Democratic Change Party. That's the one opposition political party. Just been joined by our second guest, Mr. Dr. David Mushabe from the Mushabe Munungu and Company Advocates. You're most welcome, Mr. Dr. Mushabe.
Thank you, Edmond. Good evening, listeners and viewers.
We expect to be joined online by Colonel Felix Kulayije, the spokesman for the National Army, the UPDF, and the Ministry of Defense. We'll link him in as soon as we have him on the line. Dr. Mushabe, how do we resolve this intricate problem in the DRC with or without Rwanda and Uganda?
Well, I think we should learn from the solution which other countries have adopted. I remember at one time there was a country bigger than what it is today called Ethiopia, and then Eritrea seceded. Because of the fundamental differences between and among the ethnic groups, even though they are interrelated and related, they are sort of cousins. And there are also fundamental differences politically among the leaders. The solution was secession. The recent secession that we saw was the Republic of Southern Sudan. Because there were fundamental differences. There were wars which had, there was a war which had existed that saw the death of Garang's son who died, Garang. We don't have to wait for DRC to come to that extent, whereby the war should take decades and people die. When you look at the ethnic spectrum of DRC, you realize that there is a difference ethnically between the East and the West. And the government in Kinshasa hardly knows what is happening in the East. So I think, for me, our politicians need to be brave enough. They stand on the floor of United Nations and the African Union, and they advocate for cessation. dividing DRC into two countries. It is a huge piece of real estate whereby the right arm doesn't know what the left arm is doing. So that is the only solution. Otherwise, we are going to be in perpetual wars, war after war, and people are going to die. The only way to prevent those wars is making another nation out of that.
We've just been joined by Colonel Felix Klaije, spokesman for the National Army and the Ministry of Defense. You're most welcome, Colonel Klaije.
Thank you, Edmond.
What are we doing in the DRC?
We are not there.
You sure about that?
Of course I am.
Are the M23 rebels in Kampala being hosted in five-star hotels and driven in dark-skinned Mercedes-Benzes?
Driven in what?
Well, driven in dark-skinned Mercedes-Benzes, are they being hosted by the state?
I didn't know how that money to spread around. What I know is that just like the Kinshasa authorities have representatives here, M23 rebels have their leaders here for dialogue, which dialogue was requested by His Excellency President Kabila way back in July before even the ICGLR.
So they're here for dialogue.
Otherwise, how would you have dialogue if one side is not represented?
So Uganda is brokering peace between M23 and the Kinshasa regime?
Absolutely, and this was requested by the Kinshasa government.
Where do you normally meet?
If you recall, there was a special envoy from His Excellency President Kabila, who met President Mushabe way back early there. And that's the message he had brought.
Where do they meet?
How Goma was spared, otherwise the M23 was advancing to Goma.
Where do these meetings take place? We've not seen a single press release. Is it at the Serena Hotel Diplomat? Where do you meet this representative?
This was not supposed to be for public consumption, for goodness sake.
Well, let's go for a break. We'll be back. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. It gets thicker. To stay tuned.
Everybody talking like this in the car, this in the bar. Doesn't even matter wherever you are. With Overload, what you really don't know is my number. You get a little bit more fun. Send text to all your loved ones and love. I need so long now.
Get 15% extra airtime guaranteed every time you load with MTN. Simply dial *145#. Get talking all day up to midnight with MTN Overload.
MTN, everywhere you go.
There are many things that make us truly Ugandan. We love to bang kabozi, jazz, and vibe. So, to celebrate our Ugandanness, we're offering you double kabozi minutes, orange to orange, for the same price on Free Talk. Enjoy 20 minutes at only 500 shillings per day, and 120 minutes at only 1,000 shillings per day. Simply dial *134# to subscribe. Celebration changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back to Spectrum. Tonight on Spectrum, seeking a remedy for the DRC conflict. What are the options that can lead to a lasting peace? Our guests tonight, Mr. Salim Angoliga, Deputy Secretary of Defense in charge of security at the FDC party, Dr. David Mushabe from the Mushabe, Munungu and Company. Advocates were joined on the line by Colonel Felix Klaije, spokesman for the National Army and the Ministry of Defense, who are expected to be joined by a politician from the M23 on the line. He was supposed to come into the studios here in Kampala, but he was taken ill. He couldn't even join us on the telephone. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Mr. Angoliga, should we divide the DRC like Eritrea seceded? And Gaddafi also had proposed that Nigeria be split into two. Is that a reasonable argument?
And first of all, for South Sudan has Council
David Mushabe
said here or suggested that South Sudan had to separate. That was as a solution. But he's giving a picture of two different people. You know, Sudan is composed of two groups of people.
Broadly speaking.
Yeah. The Arabs and the black Africans. Those could never under all intents, they cannot stay together because they have different cultural background. Besides, even it goes further, even in religion. The Arabs are Muslims with very few Christians. And the Southerns, the blacks, 95 or 97% Christians.
Christians and some animists.
Yeah. So those were, under any intent, they cannot be as one country.
But then they said dance the same music. Their dance strokes are the same. So they want.
Yeah, I'll come to that. Then when you look at Ethiopia, the one he brought, I think also Council need again to revisit the history of Ethiopia. During the colonial time, Italians overran Ethiopia. You have to know that Ethiopia, before the coming in of the colonial masters, the colonies of the Europeans, Ethiopia had an empire with a good government, and they were already in dialogue with even with Egypt. They had even exchanged ambassadors. But Italians went ahead and colonized Ethiopia for a very long time. But around 1930 something, I don't remember the exact date, negotiations were done. I think it was immediately after Second World War. First World War. It was resolved that Italians pull out. So as a compensation, Italians annexed Eritrea, which was a sovereign state, and they handed it over to the Emperor Haile Selassie as a gift.
Yes.
So all along the Eritreans knew they are not part of Ethiopia. They are the same people, because you have Tigrinya in Ethiopia, you have Tigrinya in the most of Eritreans are Tigrinya people. And you have to know Meles Zenawi and Isaias Afwerki, they are even cousins. Their mothers come from the same lineage. When they started the war against Mengistu Haile Mariam, they are working together. But on a deal that, look here, if we overrun Mengistu, we Eritreans want to go back to our status as the Italians had found us.
So the DRC were doing.
Yeah. So those were deals. It is far different.
So the DRC should
with
stay
the
one country.
DRC, it is an interest. It is an open secret. People are talking about it.
Yes.
It is an open secret that some people in Uganda and Rwanda want to annex part of Rwanda where they have ethnicity background, same like theirs. They want to annex it to form a state.
The Banyamulenge. Let's hear from
the Banyamulenge.
Kano Felix Kulaije. Kano Kulaije, what do we do with the Interahamwes who are in the DRC, rebels, genocides in the DRC? They kill people in Rwanda apparently, and now they are in the DRC and they are armed, about 6,000 of them.
Before I answer your question, I want to make a correction of historical facts.
Yes.
The last colonial master of Eritrea was Britain, and when they left, that's when they gave it to Prince King as a trust territory that the emperor annexed it. Secondly, Italy never colonized Ethiopia. They were beaten. They had an agreement, which agreement as well Italians they had that America had accepted the colonized by the Italians, and when it came to Munungu, the American version of house talks of the partnership.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that clarification, sir.
Now, on the question of Congo, we are dealing with the system there than the Congo. The Ramo went there 94.
Yes.
They formed the Maimai already existed. If you wonder around the region and approaching the Mushabe and Kizito at the fight, it was only pushed down by Americans before by the French in the support of Mobutu. The Congo crisis has existed since 1900, if you want. And the government of the president with the matter of Lumumba in the full eyes of the United Nations peacekeepers. So, to address the Congo question today, you need to strengthen the Congo state. And the system in the Congo state does not mean fighting each other, what you just to do. For us, we appreciate that the solution is strengthening the regime in Kinshasa, so that the capacity to be in charge of the entire country. Then the negative elements that fight the neighbors do not have the problem.
How do you do that?
How do you do that?
Yes.
One, the first step was having the government in power and the President Kabila is in charge.
Which Uganda helped establish.
To be professional, you ensure you pay. To foster that, you train the police. So internal affairs are managed. You handle infrastructure, so the government has access to the entire country. Then you can talk about democratization as you have been saying now.
Well, those are
I choose Uganda, as I've had less than saying that I'm individuals having to direct. I can speak for Uganda and speak for us. We do not have in an in the part of Congo. If we were to have interest in moving into Congo, then we would have been west of Rwanda, where Edmond is only 30 kilometers from the border.
Do we get diamonds from there, or even some gold?
Sorry?
Do we get some diamonds from there sometimes? Gold as well?
Colta.
You need the business when you're doing that, of course. You are west when the free trade zone then you across the border.
Not sanctioned by the state. Yes.
I think that the Congo are actually in the Congo.
So what are we going to do, Kano Kulaije? You have these very good ideas as the government, and then you say, if the UN does not withdraw their report, you are going to withdraw from this process. You have nice ideas. Why do you want to withdraw?
I think this report certainly undermines the condition of Uganda as a mediator. Because you cannot be a mediator when you have taken place. And certainly we know that very well. We spearheaded the peace process in Burundi, we can say we have reached. We have the new country in Somalia, we have seen how Somalia is progressing. Therefore, the regional effort is the best mechanism.
All right.
That can address the problem.
Okay, please stay with us, Kano Kulaije. We'll get back to you on this intricate matter. Dr. Mushabe, today, President Zuma met with President Kabila in Pretoria, the capital of South Africa, the administrative capital of South Africa, and they say they condemn in the strongest terms possible, and I'm paraphrasing, those forces that are involved in destabilizing a sovereign state. That means forces are another state, one state or maybe more than one state, and they called on them to cease their activities immediately. Also, while Kabila was in Pretoria, South African company Petro SA, they signed an agreement to explore for oil. Do you see any connection there in those two events today in South Africa?
Yes, Edmond. First of all, my brother here, Mr. Angoliga, sort of justified the secession of Southern Sudan based on religion and race. I don't know why race weighs more than ethnic difference. Because here in the Eastern DRC, if we have so many other big ethnic groups that have nothing in common with those in the West. In addition to that, we see less development in Eastern DRC. Government is in Kinshasa. By the way, as a caveat, my views, these are personal views, so I'm not representing any government organization. So for me, I'm challenging the politicians to be bold and say, look, the solution for DRC is secession. Like Kano Kulaije pointed out.
But the M23 rebels are not even saying that. Why do you say that for them?
Yeah, of course, they are politicians. Politicians, in most cases, by the time they verbalize anything out, it is a fait accompli. It is almost done.
You think it's on the
So the activists are the ones to say it. So if they...
Oh, you're an activist for the M23?
No, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I address myself to the problem.
And you'll do whatever you can to get them secede?
It is not whatever I can. Whatever is right. Now, you are seeing the oil deals being signed. But the oil is in the east.
We'll hear from you, Kano Kulaije. Go on.
The oil is going to be drilled from the
where
east.
the M23 are active.
Yes, but at the same time...
The people you like.
Now, at the same time, they have not resolved the differences between the Easterners and the Westerners. So this condemnation that you have pointed out that took place in South
earlier
Africa,
today, yes.
I think it is a political statement, but at the same time, you must realize that there is an economic incentive, which is
met
the drilling of oil.
They've met at 8 times.
So I think it is right for the East to secede from the West.
Kano Kulaije, is that something Uganda should support? We supported the South Sudan, now they're a sovereign state. Should we create another sovereign state to our West?
I think the two are married apart.
Really?
And then she talked about the differences between North and the South was very stark. Arab were black in the South. They have Sharia law, and they wanted to deploy across the entire country, when the South are Christian and Muslim. Thirdly, there was an equal opportunity, segregation. There were all reasons for the South to seek for secession. But for DRC, I don't think the answer is secession, the answer is federation.
They should federate.
Yes.
We should give them federalism, which we cannot practice here. It's probably easier to split. They run other, even though they dance in similar styles, even their fashion. They are one. They think as one already.
They also have that fear of going to Congo.
Right.
That's just a place.
Okay.
But we need to know that the state is a risk in Congo in 1960. One could not talk about.
Okay.
So we are addressing the Congo question, we must address it historically.
All right. Okay. We'd like to hear from the listeners, but before that, very briefly, Mr. Angoliga.
Yeah, I just want to react to to inform.
Yes.
One, I want to talk about the federation which Colonel Kulaije is suggesting for DRC.
Yes.
Why try to remove the peg in Congolese eyes?
Yes.
Why not the one of Uganda?
Do you think
Ugandans have agitated for federalism since the time of independence up to now?
All right.
And then to my brother here, about the secession because of the least development in Eastern DRC. Can the Learned Council also suggest the same for Uganda? That the northern part of Uganda and Eastern, that is Teso, Karamoja, and the northern, should also secede? Because it is only part of Uganda in name, in government. Otherwise, the northerners are not there. They're the least developed. They are not considered for employment or scholarships.
Very briefly, we would like to hear from the listener. Is it true or not?
My friend, when you take the president of Uganda,
You.
after 1986, governors were in this country.
With your participation.
Come after the
Do you want?
All right, Colonel, let's hear from the listeners. Please do stay with us so you can react to what they say. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. Our number 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Edmond, Pastor.
Yes, sir, your name?
Nice to hear you and the guest in the studio, plus question online. But the question tonight is so dicey and very lengthy because it's talking about differences people have. And yet we claim we want to have African unity, the bigger picture. Now, if rulers and leaders divide people for their own interests, it is very sad. Talk about Congo. DRC for this matter. We all know that there was a campaign to make sure Mobutu went, and he will go. Kabila Senior didn't have the tune of those who gave him support. Given. Now today, another story is unfolding. Very economic. You know what? The people who are benefiting from Eastern Congo riches are the Tutsi ethnic group. And it's a story I want to tell your church as a pastor. Good evening.
Spectrum, hello? Hello?
Hello, good evening, Edmond.
Good evening, your name?
Yeah, this is Robert Mujimba. Edmond, I want to agree with Colonel Felix Kulaije on the issue of that should the country federate. And If the Kinshasa regime does not accept federation, then the international community should force it and help the Congolese people, not the government of Congo, but the people of Congo, to settle it so that that country is governable, because in the current state it is, the current political status quo, that country is ungovernable, is surely ungovernable. Honestly, people should understand this. That's why it is going through conflict after conflict, cycles of conflict, and maladministration and failure to manage the huge territory. It must federate either by acceptance of Kinshasa or not.
All right.
If we don't, as Uganda and other neighboring countries, take a position where that country stabilizes, then we shall never stabilize. We shall always get problems from Congo.
All right. Peter, thank you very much indeed. Spectrum, hello. Good evening, your name?
Such Ambrose Kenya is my name. When we are talking of going to Congo or elsewhere, when we, in fact, Mr. Kwaiti, I salute him because he's always my friend, but I feel very much disturbed to see that.
To see that? Oh, we seem to have lost you, Church Ambrose. Please do call back. Church Ambrose Bokenya, we'd like to hear you complete. Yes, Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes? You're live on Spectrum, your name?
Why should we debate for this? Why should we debate this?
Okay, I think there's a mix-up with the lines there. We'll get that rectified just now. Let's get back into the studio as that matter is resolved. Dr. Mushabe, as you respond to these callers, let's see how you respond to them, but I'd also like you to talk to us about the mix, the FDLR mix. They are Hutus, they are Hutus, M23 is Tutsis.
Yes.
The majority, well, the government in Kigali is led by Tutsis.
Well, you see, for me, I have not found any evidence to find, to conclude that there is any intermeddling or interference, apart from the UN reports. Which UN reports have been...
and you don't believe that?
I don't believe so. Which UN reports have been largely criticized by both Rwanda and Uganda. So I wouldn't want to delve into...
okay, the lines have been restored. Let's get the views, then we'll respond to them at once. Dr. Mushabe. Pardon me. Yes. Spectrum, hello? Okay.
Edmond.
Yes, Kanokulaje, you are back online now.
Yes, I am.
Yes, let's hear from you. You had from 3 callers almost.
I think we need to appreciate this issue from a very clear angle. I would not wish us to go to the matter concerning the African question. And I feel very sad when we trust and say that rather than we trust ourselves. Because the answer is we should know that when the international conference on the British region resolved in the 4,000 strong initial force, 6,000 nations that need to deploy, when we can come to the extension that 40 troops get beyond the border. And if you want to bring the country, you to bring from the border.
Well, there's oil at that border, the one that you're talking about.
Sorry?
There's a lot of oil along that border, so that's an important one.
No, but you see, even the question of oil along that border, for information, oil is not actually good. Except along the local border. But many are with you, you are talking of diamond, you are talking of colta, and other things. And like I've seen it before, there is a need for people to interrogate. If you report the talking of 6,000 Ugandan soldiers that enter Congo, and India, 6,000 Congolese soldiers who fought in here, and were facilitated by the Uganda government in that home, are good with equal glory. Could that be a coincidence?
What's your reading of that? Read that jigsaw puzzle for us. What do you read in that?
Of course, it's simple. The strong Congolese soldiers have not Ugandan lonely, being taken back.
Oh, so Ugandan soldiers were never in there?
Soldiers use foolish enough.
Okay. Well, we have to let you go. Kano Klaije, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Spectrum tonight. It's purely because of the time. Your views were very, very enriching to this discussion. You are supposed to be in the studio, but we thank you. We appreciate that you are able to join us on the line. Thank you. Dr. Mushabe. Well, talk to us about. We have another caller. All right, Dr. Mushabe, talk to us about you. You say you don't think there's a connection between the Tutsi-led government in Kigali and the M23, Tutsi-led as well.
I don't think so. But let me see. It comes naturally that neighboring states must protect their borders. I think that's where the conflict or the mix-up might be. If the conflict in DRC is like a spillover in Uganda, I think it is natural that Uganda should react by probably.
And with Rwanda?
Yes, and likewise Rwanda should also do the same. So I don't know whether that was a misinterpretation out of the deployments maybe by those two states to protect their borders, or whether actually the troops entered. I'm not talking about in the old days.
You know, the US invaded Afghanistan and got Osama.
Yes, of course they did. But when Africans try to protect their interests and they cross the border, then there is more noise than they would make. You know, as if a European country or America entered any other country. So I think there are double standards. But I also appreciate the efforts employed by these intercastrian states to form a joint force to try to quell the conflict in DRC.
Peter Mboga says the country is too big to federate. He agrees with you. Talk to us about Jimmy's question, the first caller. He said Mobutu was removed ostensibly by Uganda and other countries. Kabila Senior was removed, and now Kabila Junior is in the firing line. That's the flaw.
Of course, first of all, you have to realize that in Africa, or like in most third world countries, the resources tend to be concentrated in few hands. And in the instance of DRC, where Kabila is in Kinshasa and the resources are there, are being ferried to Kinshasa to benefit the handful of people, these people are likely also to say this guy is no different from the other people. I think by and large the African problem is economic. The political problem becomes secondary. Africa has more have-nots than the haves.
Okay, Mr. Angoliga, because of the time, give us your response. First, Mobutu. Second, you alluded to it at the start. Mobutu number 1, 1997. Kabila Senior number 2, 2003. 2012, Kabila Junior.
Well,
what are the ripples there? And then
for
federation.
You know, the circumstances for removing Mobutu was developed when the two forces, Uganda and Rwanda forces, merged in Kinshasa, each one with a different agenda pursuing its enemies. So when they reached there, a third force of the nationals led by Kabila Senior came in and gave a reason. He said, look here guys, for us to have a permanent end of this, let us remove Mobutu and we work in peace. That was the idea. Which was a time you could imagine that to be good because there was an interested party. But now, after Kabila being installed in power, and said, look at this, my country.
Kabila too.
Kabila Senior.
Senior, yes, Kabila 1.
Say, please, you go back, let us manage our affairs. And the guys thought that they wanted to be there because there was a lot of honey.
Oh, there was
there was a lot of
honey. Was there milk as well?
Yeah,
the land of milk and
milk. Then this other Kabila, unfortunately, he died. He was murdered. Now his son is there, helped by the Angolans and the Zimbabweans.
He also stopped the flow of milk and honey.
Yeah, he also said, look here, I stand, you murdered my father, I don't want to see you. Now this...
He says he will take away your throat.
Yeah.
No honey for time is not on us.
Yeah. So now he is also on the line. But allow me just 1 minute.
Half a minute.
Yeah, half a minute. I want to thank Colonel Kulaije for being open. That because he has confirmed that Northerners are denied employment in current Uganda government because they ruled Uganda from independence time to 1986.
We have to go. Should Rwanda federate? Should they be forced to federate? Should they federate?
He said it.
That is not what he said.
We have to go. Thank you very much, Daddy.
He said that they should.
Mr. Salim, should we have the DRC? Peter Amboga said, should they federate? It's a large country. Should the international community force the people to ask for a federation? Yes or no?
Well, the suggestion can be put to the Congolese, and then they can go under referendum to agree.
We have to go. Thank you very much, Mr. Salim Angoliga. He's the Deputy Secretary of Defense in charge of security in the FDC. Thank you for coming to Spectrum. Dr. David Mushabe from the Mushabe, Munungu and Company Advocates. He's a strong sympathizer of the M23 rebels. He prefers that they take power in Kinshasa. It might be difficult, at least they can have their own state. Thank you for tuning in. We had Kano Kulaiji also calling in. He couldn't come in the studio. M23, they have a political wing spokesperson who could not come. He was taken ill belatedly. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. Chizo Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow.
There are many things that make us truly Ugandan. We love to bang kabozi, jazz, and vibe. So to celebrate